Global, the GWF, the Global Wrestling Federation. If you were a kid in the 90s, you may have seen a bit of Global, or a lot. Even if you were an adult in the 90s, you may have seen a little or a lot of Global. It was on ESPN. That was a big deal, and, well, we all know who's involved with ESPN now as far as wrestling goes, but back then, it was Global. As you can see, Global ran out of the Dallas Sportatorium, which of course was the home to World Class Championship Wrestling, and Global was almost a continuation of WCCW. It had some of the same stars, but it also had a lot of its own, and it had a lot of people who were coming down, making their way down in the business, like Axis the Demolisher at the beginning, who of course was Demolition Axe, Bill Eadie, and people on the rise, like Chaz, who we'll talk about in a little bit, and John Hawk, who of course became Bradshaw, just a multitude of names. You can see Global on YouTube, and in other ways, DVDs that aren't exactly kosher, but they're out there. You know who's a really big fan of Global? Mike Rips, the food blogger we all watch. Yeah, you watch him here on YouTube. He's a huge Global fan. And so am I. I mean, it was fun, and I have great memories of watching those shows back then with the Patriot and the Dark Patriot and Bruce Pritchard. Yeah, they were all there. Now, that wasn't the only thing to continue the world-class name. Occasionally, Texas promoters would do the same thing, and whether or not they really had the right to, who knows. But there was a show in 1993 in Wiley, Texas, that included one of the staples of World Class, Kevin Von Erich, and did indeed use the World Class Wrestling name, whether or not they should have or not. It was this show right here, and as you can see, McDonald's of Wiley presents World Class Wrestling with Kevin Von Erich. Now, I've shown this program before, I believe in my earlier vlog showing different world-class memorabilia. I think I showed that Global ticket as well. And at the time, I believe I only had 3 autographs on it. When I got this in a lot of world-class memorabilia that I obtained probably about 15 years ago, it was already signed by Kevin Von Erich. In pen, probably signed it right at the show. The lot, among others, was from a fan back then who was just wanting to get rid of her stuff, her world-class memorabilia. And boy, am I glad that those fans kept this stuff, because it's great. Now, as you can see, the show had some good matches on the card. We had Steve Simpson versus Rugged Rod Price. Got to represent Price. We had Maniac Mike Davis against Killer Tim Brooks. We had Action Jackson, not Mike Jackson, who's also Action Jackson. This was a different Action Jackson, and Chaz against Cowboy John Hawk and Hollywood John Tatum. Referee was Bonko Lubick. The announcer was Ron Yarborough. And in the main event, we had none other than, of course, the man we saw on the front and center, Kevin Von Erich, against former ally, Iceman King Parsons, right there. Now, as I said, when I got this program, obtained it, I don't want to say purchased it because it was in a lot, although I did purchase the lot. Kevin was the only autograph in it, in ballpoint, again, as he would have signed back in 1993 at the show. When I decided to add some autographs to it, I thought, I don't want Sharpie on there when he's already signed in pen. I said, what if I go back in time? What if I just get it signed in traditional old, I don't know if it's really ballpoint, but what you'd call a ballpoint pen. So I started doing that, and I got, again, Rod Price and Hollywood John Tatum at the Gathering in 2024 to sign it in pen. As you can see, they came out great. Some collectors would just totally poo-poo this idea. They'd be like, oh, it's not paint pen or Sharpie. No, it looks great. They absolutely look great. They are not smudged or anything like that. I mean, they are just perfect. Now, fast forward to this year. A few weeks ago at the Gathering, I added 2 more names, and those would be right here. And we have Chaz, who we're going to talk about in a bit, and Cowboy John Hawk. Now, you saw inside the program where Cowboy John Hawk was in the tag match against Chaz and Action Jackson, teaming with John Tatum. And I know that many of you know that John Hawk is Bradshaw, JBL, Justin Hawk Bradshaw, wherever you want to call him. Now, when I presented him for this to him to be autographed, he looked through it, as most everyone who's autographed it has, because they love seeing this stuff. These wrestlers do not have these items, so they love seeing them. They love visiting, talking about them, seeing them. It's reliving their careers. Why wouldn't they want to look at them? Now, when he was looking through it, he didn't really make note of the Cowboy moniker. But when he asked me how I wanted it signed, I said, how about Cowboy John Hawk? And he said, well, I was always Big John Hawk. And I said, oh, okay, that's fine. Inside, you're Cowboy John Hawk. And he looked again, and sure enough, he said, I'm Cowboy John Hawk. So that might be the first and probably only Cowboy John Hawk autograph ever given. There's plenty of Big John Hawks, but hey, if you want to meet him and spend your money on a Cowboy John Hawk autograph to have the second one, be my guest, because there it is. Now we're going to Chaz. Chaz, like the GWF, as we mentioned, which he was a big part of, did get some press in the after mags, those great PWI, the Wrestler, Inside Wrestling. And it may have been before I even started to see Global that I knew who he was. There was a lot of pictures of him. He was a heartthrob style wrestler. And eventually we found out that wrestler Tugboat Taylor, who was also part of Global and the Texas wrestling scene, was indeed his father. There was a whole angle with that. And as you can see, he signed this just Chaz with his little logo drawing there. Now, again, I met him at the gathering, and I purchased an 8x10 of him. And as you can see, he did sign this Chaz Taylor. When I had him sign this program, I said, I want you to sign it how you would have signed it at the show in '93. And he noted that at that time, he did not sign Chaz Taylor. So that's kind of cool that we get a little difference. I have other stories like that of wrestlers knowing how they signed at different times of their career, and that's just cool. Speaking of cool, Chaz is a really cool guy. He's great. He's all over social media, and he's done acting gigs and commercials, and he loves his mullet. He still has it. Look him up. He's a great guy, and if he's going to be at any shows that you're at, seek him out. Go say hi. Get a photo. He's got the belts, the GWF belts. Great to talk to. Loves his career. Loves his fans. Loves just knowing that he's still got the fans out there. There he is, Chaz Taylor. The mullet, the power of the mullet, and the power of Texas wrestling. I mean, so much of what we still watch today is influenced by Texas wrestling, whether it's world class or even earlier than that. And you got to wonder, if the territories were still around, what would the Texas territory look like today? I can tell you how good it would be. It would be world class. That was bad. Thanks for watching.